Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play the entirety of this video without any interruptions, and then I'll go back and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on and talk about things that I think that were done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go.
I'm Captain Valerie Littlejohn with the Office of Media Relations. We want to update you on an officer-involved shooting.
Oklahoma City 911.
Yeah, so I'm calling because I'm here at my parents' house, and there's a guy out here that my brother got in an argument with, and
What address is this at?
and well, they got in an argument, but my brother left, and that guy keeps like walking, like the guy, he was out there still like scoping the house, and he has all red on. Red beanie, red shorts.
On Wednesday, March 2nd at 5:50 p.m., Officer Bryce Sheehan responded to the 2300 block of South Kate in reference to a person causing a disturbance with a resident. When Officer Sheehan arrived, residents of the neighborhood pointed him in the direction the man was last seen walking. Officer Sheehan spotted the man in the 2100 block of Imco Drive. The officer stepped from his police car and began speaking with the suspect, later identified as Crasteven Wilson. During the conversation, Officer Sheehan asked Wilson if he could pat search him. When the officer placed his hand on Wilson's arm, Wilson quickly pulled a gun, turned, and fired at the officer, narrowly missing the officer's head. As Officer Sheehan attempted to put distance between himself and the suspect, Wilson advanced on the officer, continuing to fire at him, striking the officer in the right thigh. Officer Sheehan returned fire. The suspect then tried to steal the officer's car, but ultimately fled on foot.
Hey man, hey, come here real quick. Yeah, are you having beef with someone up the road? Hey, hold on.
Hey, he's drunk, bro.
Okay, hold on. Stop.
Hey, he's drunk.
Stop. What's going on? Keep your hands out of your pocket. You got any weapons or anything?
Nope.
What's going on with them?
I don't know. He drunk, bro. I'm trying to work.
Hold on, man.
I'm young in the mud.
Well, let me figure out what's going on. I'll get
years old.
You got any weapons? Can I pat you down real quick? Make sure you don't have any weapons. Here. Don't reach for nothing. Oh! Ah! Shots fired! Shots fired! I'm hit! He's taking off in my car. Shots fired. I'm hit. He's running. He's running down 21st behind the brown house. Started himself. I don't know. Just get in it. Get on the brakes. No, I'm hit. Am I hitting the face? No. 17, start him, so I'm hitting the right leg.
The suspect was struck by Officer Sheehan's gunfire and was found wounded a short time later behind a nearby house. Officers rendered medical aid to Wilson, and IMSA transported him to the hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. The suspect's firearm was located at the scene. Officer Sheehan was transported to OU Medical Center where he was treated and released. He has been placed on routine administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. During the course of the investigation, it was learned that several citizens had seen Wilson brandishing a firearm as he was walking through the neighborhood just prior to the shooting. The investigation is still in the early stages and will take time to complete.
All right.
The investigation is still in the early...
Let's get into it.
On Wednesday, March 2nd at 5:50.
Well,
Hey man.
so I like how he activates the camera before he gets out of the vehicle. I think that is the best a tactic to do when dealing with body cameras. That way you have one less thing to worry about once you get out of that vehicle. If you turn that thing on while you're still inside the vehicle, then once you get out, you don't have to worry about trying to remember to turn it on during something going on, or even after something critical's going on. You don't have to worry about it. It's always best, in my opinion, to start off recording from within the vehicle. I would much rather have a bunch of useless recordings on my camera than miss something super critical. And if it, not even if it's a gunfight or anything like that, even other stuff, the entire interaction. That way, someone wants to make up some bogus bullcrap, well, then you've got that documentation there, or that recording there, to be able to prove them otherwise.
Hey, man. Hey, come here real quick.
I like his spacing, so he doesn't pull right up to the guy. I'm not a big fan of pulling right up to people when you're in a vehicle, because then you're now in a seated position, and if you throw that vehicle in park, then if that person decides to start attacking, you're at a bit of a disadvantage, because you're not able to just press the accelerator and take off. So you either have to commit to drawing and shooting from where you're at, or commit to throwing the car in drive and taking off, assuming if your vehicle's on. So distance is always a good thing. That gives you reactionary time. That way this guy cannot quickly close the distance and get on him before he can get out and get into a good fighting position.
Yeah.
As far as his vehicle goes, obviously he leaves it unlocked, and this guy ends up being able to get into it. There are products out there that are aftermarket pieces of equipment that you can get to install in a vehicle so that the vehicle can remain running in a parked position. And if you try to move the shifter, it shuts the vehicle off. And I forget the name of that product, but it's a pretty cool product. But it does cost an extra thing, and some agencies and administrators may be worried about splicing into the vehicle wires and voiding warranties, or etc. And they may just say, hey, turn your car off or lock it. But I certainly think that's one of the more better proactive approaches to being able to keep your vehicle from being stolen. Because believe it or not, police cars get stolen more than you think. Aside from having a device installed that would shut the vehicle off if you try to take it out of park, the next best thing is to turn the vehicle off completely. Now, that's only going to work for sure and be an accepted practice if you can turn the vehicle off and everything else remains on. So that's the benefit of that. Going back, that's the benefit of that device. It allows you to keep the vehicle running so that you can keep all the electrical components, accessories running and charged. So you get to keep the light bar going, you get to keep the heat going, the AC going, the MDT gets to stay powered up. If it's the canine car, the fan in the back gets to keep going to keep the dog cool, etc. If you turn the vehicle off, well, then that depends on how the vehicle is wired. If the vehicle is wired in a way that when you turn that ignition switch to the off position, it shuts everything off, well, then that's not very beneficial to get in that habit if you want to get out suddenly and still leave your warning lights and everything on. In order to be able to leave your warning lights on, your emergency equipment, your equipment would need to be wired up in a way so that when you turn the ignition to the off position, all your accessories can still remain on even after you open the door and everything. How agencies have their vehicles wired vary from state to state, and even within the state, agency to agency. There really is no set standard on wiring vehicles. Some of the vehicles come from manufacturer with some pre-setups that make it easy to start wiring things in. Other vehicles come from distributors who do full workups, and then for the agencies that just get the car and maybe some pre-set up stuff like the Dodge Charger, there's this chip thing that goes into the console. It has a bunch of a ribbon wire on it, and you can start splicing things into it. For vehicles like that, then the installer basically does their own flavor, and it is widely different from agency to agency. You may have some installers who are really great at what they do. They take the time to meticulously take down the trimming and the interior and run the wire so they're all hidden and got them all neat and loomed, and the wires where they go to are all nice and neatly organized and zip tied off, and etc. And then there's others who just create a bird's nest or they don't even take the time to go through the trim. They just drill the hole and run it alongside the B post and have it go up, behind the cage and in through the middle of the console, and then they do the basic wiring. It's really different. Some are very good at the wiring, some are not. So this is also going to be dependent on how your agency or your company has your vehicle set up. But if they're able to be set up to where you can turn them off and still keep the flashing lights turned on, then that's a plus. And that's the next best thing to do to be able to prevent someone from stealing your vehicle. The third thing to do is just lock your car. Leave it running and lock it, and that is not going to fully prevent someone from taking the vehicle, but it's going to slow them down in their attempt to try and take it. And because it's locked and it's not an easy picking for them, they may just abandon it altogether and try to go to something else. If you have a key fob type of vehicle, like a Dodge Charger, that's obviously the easiest thing to do. You can have your key fob hanging from your belt, or you can get a belt-mounted holster for it. I have one of these products from 09 Holsters. It's a Kydex holster that you put the key fob into, and it stays inside of it, and the front of it is open so that the buttons are exposed. All you got to do is reach down and press a button to either unlock the car, lock the car, or make the trunk open. Very simple setup, my preferred setup, so I don't have the key fob kind of dangling around on the keychain or anything like that. It's nice and secured to the belt and is protected by the Kydex sheath. Locking the door basically entails building a habit. So every time you get out of that car, you press the lock button. Even if you know you're just going to be going a couple feet, just get in the habit of always hitting that lock button. For those who have actual keys that go into the vehicle, this obviously means you're going to have a spare key on you to be able to keep the car running and be able to lock it. Should be, in most places, a common practice for an officer to have the spare key on them, because there's been so many times officers have stopped somewhere, locked the car, and then quickly found out they locked themselves out of their car and have to call the dispatch center all discreetly and have someone come bring them a spare. So try and secure your vehicle, or make it hard for someone to take, or even get in there and start rummaging around.
Are you having beef with someone up the road? Hey, hold on.
Hey, he drunk, bro. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Stop. Stop. What's going on? Keep your hands out of your pocket. You got any weapons or anything?
Nope.
What's going on with it?
I don't know. He drunk, bro. I'm trying to walk.
Hold on, man.
Young in the mud.
Well, let me figure out what's going on. I'll get yours. You got any weapons? Can I pat you down real quick? Make sure you don't have any weapons.
So his position right here, he is bladed toward this officer. Obviously, the officer does not have x-ray vision and cannot see through him and see what his right hand is doing. This guy is getting himself prepared to kill this officer. This officer is extremely lucky that he did not get a bullet in his head, because this guy was trying to split his wig. This is a bit of complacency on his part, wanting to go pat someone down and they're being turned. The better preferred way of doing this is to tell them to face away and have their hands out or up, then get closer to them. Otherwise, this setup right here is deadly.
Here. Any weapons? Can I pat you down real quick? Make sure you don't have any weapons. Here. Don't reach for nothing. Make sure you don't have any weapons. Here. Don't reach for nothing.
It happens so fast.
Make sure you don't have any weapons. Here. Don't reach for nothing.
Very fast. I mean, they're bad breath distance. They're touching each other, and he comes around and fires at this officer's head. This officer needs to go play the lottery. You just have no idea like how extremely lucky he is to not have been shot in the face. He does a pretty good recovery here. He starts to retreat away. He spins, gets the gun out, and starts to engage. Notice the difference in technique here. So this officer goes to a good two-handed grip, and little thug boy down here is, I don't know what you call this, the Birdman stance. He's stupid looking. So the officer's trained, and generally two-handed grips means that you're going to be more likely to be accurate. Now, obviously, dude with his little big red Kool-Aid man, Birdman stance, whatever the heck you call this, he was able to get a hit on this officer in the back of his leg. But this officer, he turns and he fires, and he gets hit on him. I don't know how many hits he gets on him, but he does get at least one hit for sure, because he ends up going down, and then he gets more hits on him, because this guy ends up dying from the amount of rounds that he's taken into him. Obviously, they have not released any autopsy information from this, so I don't know exactly where the officer's bullets hit and what kind of damage they did, but obviously he put enough rounds into this guy that they ended up becoming lethal. Now, the rounds that he did put into him were not immediately incapacitating. Obviously not mentally incapacitating, because he continued to fight and run. And obviously not physically incapacitating, because it did not stop him from doing any of that stuff. So although his rounds ended up being lethal, they were not immediately incapacitating. Very similar to a lot of other scenarios and other cases across the world. One of those cases that's referenced a lot in training is the FBI Miami shootout in the 1980s between the FBI and a couple of bank robbers. During the beginning of this gunfight, one of the suspects is crawling out of the vehicle and takes a round through the side of his chest. That round goes in and lands within his heart area. It is a lethal hit. It would eventually kill him. However, it was not immediately incapacitating, and he was able to go on and kill 2 FBI agents and seriously wound a few others. Handgun ammunition is extremely weak, although it can sometimes do the job. The reason why pistols are carried is because they're comfortable and convenient, and you can wear them all day and it not really take a toll on you or anything. And when a sudden rapidly evolving situation occurs, the pistol can be used to some degree of effectiveness to protect yourself and get incapacitation. And it's also the fact that police are not getting involved in gunfights every single day, multiple times a day. If officers were getting in gunfights a lot, then I believe the mindset would change from, okay, let's start carrying rifles, because they would quickly figure out that rifles are fight stoppers and are better at doing that job than pistols could ever be. Now, in this particular scenario, would getting a rifle out have been appropriate for this type of call? No. The beginning of it, it sounded like, they just said that there was an argument or something like that. And then towards the end, they said that when they talked to witnesses, the witnesses had described that this guy had been shown a gun. Now, it's not very abundantly clear whether or not this officer had known any of that beforehand. If he had known any of that beforehand, then he definitely should have gotten out with a rifle out. But if he didn't know anything about weapons and stuff being involved, then this would not be one of those calls that I would advocate getting a rifle out on, because these type of calls typically end up going nowhere and both parties go on about their way. So I can't fault the officer for, getting out and approaching the way he did. I think he did a great approach. He didn't park too close. He had some distance and everything. You just never know when these things are going to happen. Obviously, the dude goes down, and then you'll hear him kind of yelp out. So the guy's running away, and he decides to keep shooting. Perfectly okay with that. This guy is a dangerous felon trying to flee. He is a clear and present danger to the rest of the people within this area. So this officer was perfectly legal in using deadly physical force against this guy as he was running away. Tennessee versus Gardner.
I'm hit! He's taking off in my car. Shots fired. I'm hit.
I would imagine that in this guy's his haste, his hurriedness, and his adrenaline dump and everything, I think he maybe originally when he pulled the gear selector down, it went in the neutral, because you hear it rev really loud, but it doesn't obviously take off, but it does start rolling forward. So I think it's possible that the vehicle got put into drive before he got out of the vehicle, or as he was getting out of the vehicle. Not sure, but whenever he first got in and tried to take off, I think he had that vehicle in neutral. Because he obviously took off beating feet, and
He's running, down 21st, behind the back.
It's hard to see once the officer gets down this way, but he's right there. Right, you can see his head right above the light bar.
He's running, down 21st.
And then it's just the angles from the car and everything. You don't get to see him running down this way. So this officer fires the slide lock. That's not something that typically always happens in gunfights, but it ended up happening in this one. He does a reload. Could he have pressed forward more instead of trying to go in behind this fence area? Yes, certainly. I think that he had this tree right here that he could have went towards to take cover in case this guy did be able to get this vehicle in drive and start taking off. Certainly he don't want to be run over, and getting behind this tree would be sufficient amount of cover to protect against that vehicle. And I think he would have been in a better position to be able to continue laying down fire on this guy, trying to hit him through the windshield.
I'm hit. He's taking off in my car. Shots fired. I'm hit. He's running. He's running down 21st behind the brown house. Started himself. I don't know.
Tourniquet. All right. So, this is why I always talk about it is important to carry medical gear on you instead of just keeping it in the car. What if this officer had this tourniquet in his car and this dude was actually able to take off in it? He would not have any of his medical gear available to him because old dude would have taken off with it. This is why carrying medical gear on you is the utmost importance. You cannot rely on it being anywhere else. Your car may be stolen. It may be set on fire. You may be pinned down by a gunfire and unable to get it because if you try to go towards it, you'll get shot. Or you may be a very long distance away from it. Seconds count when it comes to medical gear. You can bleed to death within 90 seconds from a femoral artery hit. Standard ambulance response times can vary somewhere between 5 to 8 minutes, and that's being, pretty nice. And it really depends on where you're at too. So more urban environments, and when it comes to urban, it really depends on how urban it is. If it's metropolitan and it's heavy traffic during the day. It could be a minute before someone gets to you. If you're in a more rural area, smaller town, they might be able to get to you quicker. If you're all the way out in the county, at the county line, it could be a minute before anybody gets out there to you. And if you don't have the medical gear to treat your own injuries and stop your bleeding, then whenever somebody does get there, the only thing they're going to be able to do is put a little sheet over you and cover up your dead body. Having the medical gear is one part of the solution. The other part is having the training and knowing how to use it. You have to have the medical knowledge to be able to save yourself. Watching YouTube is not the best place to get this. You need to get it in person. Oops.
Just get in it and get on the brakes. Oh, I'm hit. Am I hitting the face? No. 17 starting, so I'm hitting the right leg.
The suspect was struck by Officer Sheehan's gunfire and was found wounded a short time later behind a nearby house. Officers rendered medical aid to Wilson, and IMSA transported him to the hospital where he succumbed to his injuries.
Not a whole lot of information about how far away he made it, but he made it some distance away, and I guess he went to go hide in behind a house, thinking that, he made it far enough away on foot, he's going to hide it out because he knows the police are coming. Or it could have gotten to the point where he lost enough blood that he wasn't really able to go any further, and this is just kind of where he went to go rest up, and quickly realized he wasn't able to get back up and continue to do anything else. So he's put in a hyphen or an occlusive dressing right in here. Now, I wish that there was more information about what his injuries were like. So obviously he does get some torso hits on this guy. How many, I don't know. But you do see that his shirt here is soaked with blood, and then his shorts are soaked with blood as well. It would just be pure guessing on what kind of hits this guy would have taken. But it's possible that, his liver could have been perforated, and there's really not much that's going to be able to be done for him, or one of his arteries or veins within the trunk area could have been nicked, and he's bleeding a lot internally. And I mean, there's just not much you can do in the field for that. I mean, there are abdominal tourniquets that can be used, but I mean, there's just some stuff that your basic training and everything is not going to be able to do anything for anybody. They literally have to be taken to a hospital to have anything useful done for them. And who knows, the injuries that he got, if he wouldn't have ran away, and if he would have surrendered and they got to him sooner, maybe he could have survived. Maybe they would have been able to treat those injuries sooner. Or the injuries that he had, no matter what they did, it may not have mattered. He could have received these injuries right in the middle of the best trauma center in the world, and because of the type of injuries he got, it may have been the kind that there was nothing that even they could do. So instead of waiting for the ambulance, because we all know the ambulance doesn't always get there on time, this officer catches a ride with another officer. So he obviously jumps in the passenger seat here, and I can only imagine that they hauled ass to the hospital and probably got there faster than any ambulance could ever dream of getting there in that amount of time. Sometimes the police car is the best medical transport to be able to take. Not much else to say about this video. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.